Ketchikan to order, please call the roll.
Coos.
Here.
Harris.
Present.
Carlson. Olson.
Here.
Severson.
Here.
West. Here. Zingy. Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. That brings us down to our first business as a public hearing on ordinance 1757, amending Chapter 1112, Telecommunications Services and Rates. Is anybody here to speak to that tonight? Seeing none, we'll close that public hearing. It brings us down to communications. Laid on the table, we have the 2016 Lobbying Executive Committee priority list. Report on a pedestrian accident on Mill. And that's it. That brings us down to persons to be heard. Emmanuel, come on up.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, and I'd like to introduce myself as a new member in the community here in Ketchikan. I moved from Los Angeles and currently residing and made Ketchikan my domicile. My concern is tonight is regards to the police department and how I was assaulted this weekend at my job location where I currently work at the Gilmore Hotel as a night audit. And the gentleman who assaulted me, the police department was aware of his business address and his name. Now, before I get to that, I'd just like to show my past standing in the community of Highland Park and what this recognition represents as far as being an outstanding member in the community of Highland Park and being elected over there as Chair of Economic Development, a community of 60,000 people. And this is what I got from my service. This here is a certificate from the City of Los Angeles, my service for the community as a member of Chair of Economic Development, presented by the Mayor, signed by the Mayor, presented by the City Council of Los Angeles. Now, as such, I'm also a paralegal. I did my service and internship at the LA Superior Court, Office of Family Law. And also as a former representative, I'm kind of upset the way the police department has failed to apprehend by the person named Chris Diaz, who my attorney has filed a public record to summons him on a civil matter. So I'd like to question the police officer in this assembly to read the difference between incarcerating someone over the weekend versus arresting a public brawl that occurred 2 nights ago in front of the Gilmore at the Totem. So that's basically, I'm pretty upset about this. I'm still boiling about it, but as far as it stands right now, there's no due justice or due process for me because this individual is out and about walking and the police and DA hasn't prosecuted him yet. So
the best advice I'd give you, I'd get a hold of our city manager and the city attorney and meet with them. And
I believe I did previously. Nothing was done. This is the second time.
Hold this second. This is our manager. Have you talked to Carl?
I don't believe we've talked.
I believe I talked to David.
Me? No. Mr. Martin's in the back. He's shaking his head no. If you want to call me tomorrow, I will be glad.
That's the best way to start. Start at the top, and we can work our way down. So give the office a call tomorrow and get something set up with Carl, and he's in charge of the police and everything. So
okay, because right now, I'm trying to get 2 things started. The civil part has gotten started. The criminal part needs to be started.
Well,
all
they'll
right.
direct and give you some direction.
All right.
I'm up on the 4th floor here, so I'm easy to find.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, man. All right, that brings us to Nancy McNulty. Come on up.
Nancy McNulty from Talbot's, 1101 Tongass Avenue. Good evening, Council and Mayor. I have a photo I'd like to hand out. This is a photo of the sign that's been recently placed at the top of the Berth 4 ramp.
Thank you.
I was here at the last meeting requesting that the sign be removed that was recently placed near the top of the Berth 4 ramp, and it is still there, and it breaches the agreement between the city, SPH, KDC, and Talbot's. The sign is very unfair to Talbot's business. At the last meeting, Carl said that the city isn't doing anything physical, but the sign is physical, and it steers passengers out of the area and away from Talbot's property. I would respectfully request that the council direct management to meet with Talbot's with a couple of council members present until there is a mutually agreeable resolution. Thank you.
Any questions for Nancy? We'll take it up, Nancy.
Thank you.
Next, Susan Peters.
Good evening, council members, honorable mayor. Susan Peters, 5067 North Tongass Highway. As the chair of the Downtown Steering Committee, a merchant downtown, and a member of the Ketchikan Chamber of Commerce, I am here in support of a tax-free holiday this October. All the reasons are to promote shopping at local businesses, keeping our spending dollars here, create an event where outlying people come to our community to shop, which increases sales, along with the businesses offering sales and the local governments offering no tax. It's a good partnership. This shows that we give back to our customers and our community. Also, something I thought about as a consideration, because I think this would maybe be the third or the fourth, and I know that all tax dollars are important to all governments. That maybe during your budget, if you approve this, you might consider having it in your budget also at the time you do your budgets, if you have a tax-free holiday, or you okay another one. So I'm in support of it, and I hope you are too. Any questions?
We have a question from Marty.
Do you have a excuse me? Do you have a preference for dates?
Well, not completely. I think we had talked about the 4th is what we had talked about, a few of us.
And
But-
the 4th and the 18th and the 11th, I think.
Okay, the 4th is, I think we want to do it around permanent fund time. That's, part of it. And permanent fund checks start being mailed on the 2nd, and also they get deposited on the 2nd. Then, so I think there was the 4th or the 11th.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Alright.
the 4th is what we had, as when we
That's
wrote a
right.
letter, that's what we had suggested.
Thanks.
We have the 11th.
And you had the
We
11th in the
discussed the
paper.
11th. I think that we've got it again on our agenda tonight.
We get to pick a date in. Thanks, Susan.
Any questions? Thank you.
Rob, where are you?
Rob Shearer, 614 Lotus, and I'm here to speak to the City Council and Honorable Mayor, City Manager, with regard to the proposed waterfront boardwalk that is partially complete behind the Lumberjack Show and continues on all the way down to Berth 4. And on the Stedman side, it continues on all the way out to the breakwater. And there's a section undone that's behind the Lumberjack Show. And if I may approach the City Council, I have just a small packet of information. Some of you may have already received this.
Thanks. Sir?
There you go. Specifically, I'm here to speak about a section of the proposed waterfront promenade that lies directly behind the Lumberjack Show and occupies probably one of the most historic and scenic areas of Ketchikan, the Thomas Basin area. Used to play, well, the Spruce Mill was there, played baseball there, The original sites of Ketchikan were up along the creek. Thomas Basin itself hosts the fishing fleet as well as all the international and national logging operations that came in there. It's probably one of the most scenic in that it looks over a historic area that's unimpeded by cruise ship traffic. It also has Deer Mountain in the background, active salmon stream. There's just a whole number of aspects to this area that really are tremendous for the community, creature comfort, and the visitor industry to enjoy. The property is currently owned by two identities behind the Lumberjack Show and a third down towards the Federal Building. The properties would be Dawson, the Great Alaskan Lumberjack Show, and the City of Ketchikan. The City of Ketchikan owns the Tidelands, and then there's the sheep pile, and then the property line for the Great Alaskan Lumberjack Show lies behind that. In the last 15 years, I've been involved with Historic Ketchikan, the city of the Downtown Businessmen Association for the last few years talking about this project, the Stedman Association, City Council, and really what we're wanting to do is to accelerate the dialogue on what is best way to complete this section of Promenade. Currently, to date, T-Gals worked with the city to complete the first section, of which many of you have, over the last few years, walked with me. Any of you that have not walked with me in the last week or so, I apologize I couldn't get to everyone. It's a really busy time of year. But it's a tremendous piece of promenade that's been completed, not only in its look and appeal for the historic value, but in the way that it's just designed. It's not just a straight concrete path. It's actually a antiquated, nostalgic-looking boardwalk. That was done in the last several years. It was first done by, we entombed an old sheep pile that had failed at the cost of $110,000. I then, the Great Alaskan Lumberjack Show and the wharf gave easements to the city in perpetuity with a land value of about $90,000. Then the city, through grants, was able to complete a $90,000 boardwalk on top of that. It is now dead-ended and is waiting to be completed. And so the dialogue that I'm looking to do with the city is, first of all, is with regard to engineers looking at the project, they thought it was not feasible. Engineering was feasible, but it required more sheep pile going out into the stream to do another retention. But by creating more space back there, it would allow a riprap type continuation of a waterfront similar to what we completed in the first phase of this, which would also look like much of what's already been completed in Thomas Basin and also the breakwater. So last year we endeavored to move our grandstands to create that space at a cost of over $570,000. So currently, the Great Alaskan Lumberjack Show has contributed $700,000 to the forward motion and to the hard aspect of the first area of the promenade. But we're advised that we can't really do anything now until we interact with the city council and staff to figure out what the next steps are because of the joint property and the engineering and the actual construction that would take place. So I'm asking that if the city truly wants this, and I think on page 2 of the presentation that I gave you, the city spent, I think, $340,000, and I may be speaking out of number. The number may not be accurate, but there was a large amount of money spent for an economic development and redevelopment of the downtown area by a firm, and I don't know where they came from, but I spent 4 or 5 meetings, went to 4 or 5 meetings, and the last meeting, everyone was asked to vote on what was the number one item they would like to see done in the downtown area for this economic development revitalization. And it was the completion of the promenade in that area. That was the number one. And then Mission Street revitalization, or make a mall of Mission Street, was number 2. Now I understand that the city does have a lot of really important projects on their table. I also understand the city has completed hundreds of millions of dollars of very, very vital economic infrastructure within the downtown corridor. Much of it funded through head tax and through some recently in CPV funds. So what I'm asking is City Council to join us in the dialogue in trying to find a way to complete this area, because we are willing to gift our property to the city in perpetuity behind the promenade or behind the Lumberjack Show to facilitate community-owned promenade, green space, potential park. There's even been some talk of a fishing area back there as all part of this. And I laugh at that because I'm right there where all the fishing takes place, and I walk across the bridge every day, twice a day. So I'm aware of the need for additional fishing space. So anyway, that is what I have come to speak to. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. But our hopes are to see this promenade completed and belong to the community.
Any questions for Rob?
Is this where I ask for a show of hands? To get dialogue started?
If you'd
All
like.
right, I would like to see a show of council members who would be interested in having a dialogue with Rob and the rest of the whole group down there. Maybe with the borough, I don't know who we put together, and see if we can't get something going, because we've been waiting 9-10 years that I know of on this promenade. We need to get something done.
We have 4 hands to direct the management to start. We got plenty. So be it.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob.
All right.
All right, that brings us to Chelsea.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Goucher. I live at 436 Main Street, and I'm here on behalf of the Greater Ketchikan Chamber of Commerce, also to speak in support of a tax holiday in October. For all of the reasons that Susan mentioned, it's a great thing for our small businesses here in town. Speaking to different business owners anecdotally, many of them had their best day of the year last year during the tax holiday, and I heard from one woman that it was one of their best days ever since they've been in business. So stuff like that is really encouraging to hear. The Chamber's really behind this. My board of directors has been kind enough to actually set aside a budget for me to create an advertising campaign to promote a tax-free holiday, along with a broader Shop Local First campaign. So it will kind of keep it going, kick things off in October around PFD time, and hopefully carry it through into the holiday season. I think any day in October would be fine. The 11th would work. I think we kind of talked about maybe suggesting the 4th, only because so many people are going to get their direct deposits and go straight to Amazon, and all the money is going to go out of Ketchikan. So we all know that tax dollars are important. Every dollar counts, but every dollar that's spent here in the community is going to get recycled and recirculated and get donated back, and raffle tickets will be bought, and sports teams will get funded, and so it's going to be a good thing for the community. So I would just ask you to think about it, maybe consider the 4th, and do a tax holiday again. And I will be making a similar presentation to the borough on September 2nd.
Any questions for Chelsea? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, that's everybody on the list, but I wonder if there's somebody else that'd like to talk to us, Renee.
My name is Renee Schofield. I reside on Pinnock Island, and I forget that you have the sign-in sheet. I haven't been for a while, so I apologize for
Either
that.
way, don't worry about it.
I took the liberty of putting on the table a resolution that has been passed by the Substance Abuse Task Force, of which I'm the chair. That task force is a committee under the Ketchikan Wellness Coalition. The resolution is specific to ballot measure 2, which is directly legalizing, commercializing, and industrializing marijuana, recreational marijuana. The task force is taking an oppositional position on this, and for their several reasons. I didn't bring you all of the documentation because it's about 10 pounds, and for each of you it's a lot to carry home. So if you'd like to see that, I can email you different links, or you can come by my office and pick up your 10-pound packet, because there's a lot of it. There are scientific studies that show the developmental problems with marijuana, and I invite you to think about 40 years ago, the commercials we would see advertising cigarettes and smoking, and how popular that was, and where we are today. I'm going to suggest that we'll see that same thing 20 years from now regarding pot when we legalize it. The task force feels specifically that even though it's been commercialized, industrialized, and selling in Washington and Colorado, we need to wait. We need to see what happens. They're already experiencing extensive problems in their social services, in different things in their community, especially in the edible side. This specific resolution for us, the ballot measure, allows the edibles to be produced in Ketchikan or in Alaska as a whole. And that's very scary because there's no oversight on that. So we really need to look at it. There's a lot of folks that are in opposition. The Alaska Association of Police Chiefs, of which Chief Bengard participates in, has also come out in opposition. Dittmer Research out of Anchorage presented today at the Alaska Chamber and told us that they could not find one single person incarcerated in Alaska whose primary charge is marijuana, because we're very liberal with it already. So we're already pretty loose. We don't see a reason to go further. The Alaska Chamber also today voted to oppose ballot measure 2. We think that sends a big message to business, because where's our workforce? If we do this and we allow it to happen, we don't have workforce readiness, and that's really important. So I'm happy to answer any questions. There's a lot of detail we can't possibly go over in one night. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of availability to educate you. But what I'd like to invite you to do is consider your own resolution that says we're going to come out in opposition. We think it's a smart thing to do for business. It's a smart thing to do for our community. Happy to answer questions.
Any questions for Nate? Thank you very much.
Thanks. And I'm going to go out in the sun.
You bet. I'm trying to get there. Anybody else that wants to speak to the council tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on into our agenda. That brings us down to...
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
are we gonna put the lot dealing with community priority list on the table?
I don't think so. This is for the info for the executive. Did we want to...
I would like to make some comments on it. Maybe I can make them, but
Mr. Mayor, I was gonna address that in my manager's report.
Okay. You want to address it in your comments, Dick, or?
as long as the council can agree upon anything we want to agree upon. Give you and Matt direction.
We'll ask.
Okay.
10-4. All right, that brings us down to consent agenda. I'd like to add, if possible, unfinished business 6A 1 and 2 and B1. And under new business, I just had 7B2, the Burke change order. If anybody has any problems with those, we can pull one. Otherwise, I'd put them on consent agenda.
I'll just have a question on B2 when we get to it.
Okay? See if no objections, we'll do that. Do we have a motion to consent?
Your Honor, I move to consent.
Moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, will you read the items?
Approval of minutes, regular city council meeting of August 7th, 2014. Ordinance number 14-1761, repealing subsection 15 of section 13.09.010A of the Ketchikan Municipal Code entitled Designated Penalty for Violation. First reading. Budget transfer, advertising expenses associated with the cost of contract number 14-21 4x4 chassis cab truck. Resolution number 142564, requesting immediate remedial action on the Mill Street segment of the North Tongass Highway. Declaration of surplus vehicles, surplus of catwalks and stairs. Resolution number 142565, appointing election officials for the October 7th election. Ordinance number 141758, amending and repealing Ketchikan Municipal Code Title I, Prisoners to Work, suspended imposition of sentence, and Ketchikan Municipal Code Title I, violations, to comply with state law, second reading. Ordinance number 141760, amending and repealing certain sections of the Ketchikan Municipal Code, Title 10, Vehicles and Traffic, to adopt state statutes and regulations, second reading. Ordinance number 141757, amending telecommunications service and rates, second reading. And change order number 3 to contract number 1256, Whitman Lake Hydroelectric Project Powerhouse Equipment Installation with Burke Electric LLC.
All right, Bob, you had a comment on one?
Yeah, well, this is all due to, foreign material going down the pipeline and wiping those things out, and I'm just wondering why we're doing the remedy change order and it's not a responsibility of the contractor in place.
Carl?
We needed to get the delegation from China to come in and take a look at both units. Dawson has been advised that we are going to be looking to them to cover these costs. As I indicated in the executive session, we have opened up a claim with our own insurance company. We will be looking to get reimbursed for these expenditures.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Call the roll.
Harris?
Aye.
Zingy?
Yes.
Severson?
Yes.
West?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
All right, that passes 6-0. That brings us down to unfinished business 6A3, establishing October 11, 2014, a sales tax holiday deferred from August 7th. We made a motion for the 11th, but it sounded like we had some push for the 4th. The motion on the table is for the 11th. Judy, did you want to do something different, as I heard?
Yes, I'd like to amend the motion to read October 4th.
Second.
Moved and second. You want to talk to it?
No, I think it's a great idea. Retailers love it.
Now, since you're involved with the chamber, is this going to include Moonlight Madness too, or is this just going to be the tax holiday?
We're actually having a meeting with the downtown steering committee and some
Tuesday.
businesses in the West End to sort of make that decision and
Okay.
see what we're going to
So
do
this is just a tax holiday we're talking about. Okay.
right now.
Anybody else? Call the roll.
On the amendment, or will it substitute?
They will substitute for the whole thing.
West?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Carlson? Oh, sorry. Coos?
Yes.
Harris?
Aye.
Severson?
Yes.
Zingy?
Yes.
All right, that brings us down, that passes 6-0, brings us down to 6B2, ordinance 141762, approving the Whitman true-up agreement between the city of Ketchikan and SEPA. Second reading, we have a motion?
Your Honor,
You read that?
I move the City Council approve the second reading of ordinance number 141762, approving the Whitman true-up agreement between the City of Ketchikan, DBA Ketchikan Public Utilities, and Southeast Alaska Power Agent, providing for the filing of a referendum petition and establishing the effective date.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anybody want to add anything? Matt Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Williams. I really wish this included a complete bypass of the small unit for Whitman, because that's going to be on anyways. And I look at right now, I believe we're spilling from Swan, and that's not a result of snowpack. There's, it's a result of other rains that have happened. If we had used, I can just see the whole debate and the whole discussion now. If we use Whitman during the winter when things are getting tight, and all of a sudden we start spilling, not because there was water then, but because there's more than enough water now, that we're going to have a whole bunch of side discussions. And I think it would have been a much easier thing for us to do to have the small unit pulled. And I also don't think it would have cost SEPA any of their bonding ability.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Call the roll.
Severson?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
Zingy?
Yes.
Harris?
Aye.
Olson?
No.
West?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 5-1. That brings us down to new business 7A1, comprehensive annual financial report of the city of Ketchikan, Alaska, and supplementary compliance report section of the year end December 31st, 2013.
Your Honor,
Yes.
Will the city council accept the comprehensive annual financial report of the city of Ketchikan, Alaska, and supplementary compliance report section for the year ending December 31st, 2013?
We have a second? Moved and second. Dirk, take it away.
Good evening. My name is Dirk Richardson, as most of you know, and I'm representing the firm of Meekum Richardson and Company. We do your annual audit. And essentially, we do the independent audits report that covers the financial statements and what we do with it. And then we also issue accountants reports and opinions on the compliance report section. On page 15 of the CAFR, your financial statements, is our independent audits report. And basically, I just kind of read some of this because it speaks pretty good to what we do. It says we've audited your financial statements and the related notes as of for the year ended December 31st, 2013. And management's responsibility is that they're responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States. This includes the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. And then our responsibility is to express, our being the auditors, is to express opinions on these financial statements based on our audit. And we conduct the audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. And those standards require that we plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement. And then our audit involves performing procedures to obtain audit evidence about the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. The procedures selected depend on the auditor's judgment, including the assessment of the risks of material misstatement of the financial statements, whether due to fraud or error. In making those risk assessments, the auditor considers internal control relevant to the entity's preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in order to design audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the internal control. Accordingly, we express no such opinion. And an audit also includes evaluating the appropriateness of the accounting policies used and the reasonableness of the significant accounting estimates made by management, as well as evaluating the overall presentation of the financial statements. And then we go on to say that we believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our audit opinions. And in our opinion, the financial statements referred to are present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the city of Ketchikan, Alaska. And so that's the basic opinion. Goes on to talk about some required supplementary information and stuff. You can read that. But essentially, what you have, what we now call an unmodified opinion. They used to call it an unqualified opinion. But there were some questions raised about that. Who was unqualified, the auditors or the staff? Or who? So they changed that. So anyway, you got an unmodified, or what we also call a clean opinion.
Excellent.
And then we have the compliance report section, which is the reports to the federal and state governments for the federal and state financial assistance you receive. And those opinions, again, were clean, and there were no findings to report, which is good. So anyway, there's the schedule of the financial statement of the financial assistance received. For the state, it totaled $22 million. That's the amount expended this year. And for the federal, it was $2.3 million. And then we had a management letter where we made a comment on some lack of collateral on one of the accounts, and the management letter speaks to that, and the finance department's corrective action report also speaks to that. And that's kind of about it.
Great.
There's a letter to governance in there that you're supposed to read.
Thank you.
And it brings out some things that the AICPA likes us to mention. So, that being it, does anybody have any
questions for Dirk? Seeing none, we'll see you next year.
Okay.
Thanks, Dirk.
Thank you very much.
Call the roll.
Zingy,
Yes.
Coos,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Harris,
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
Severson,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
That passes 6-0. It brings us down to new business 7A2, budget transfer, public education program in support of the ballot proposition to issue wastewater revenue bonds not to exceed $5 million. Do we have a motion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I move the city council approve the transfer of $10,000 from appropriated reserves of the wastewater services fund to the wastewater division's 2014 advertising and public announcements account, which is account number 60502, to fund a public education program in support of the ballot proposition to issue wastewater revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $5 million to provide funds for sewer main replacement projects in Schoenbach Road, Chatham Avenue, and Front, Mill, and Stedman Streets.
Second.
All right. Do you have any comments, Marty?
A sorely needed project, and I think we need to make certain that the public is aware of the sorely needed project that we do have before us.
Anybody else? Dick?
Yeah, just, for some reason or other, thinking we were looking for only $10,000 total, but we're taking 10 from here and 10 from,
Right.
so that's 20 grand? Okay.
Call the roll.
Harris,
Aye.
Olson,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Coos,
Yes.
Severson,
Yes.
Zingy.
Yes.
All right, that passes 6-0. That brings us down to 7B1, Amendment 1 to a lease agreement between the Plaza and the City of Ketchikan, KPU. Do we have a motion? And Judy, I think you should sit and watch. Thank you.
Your Honor,
Go ahead.
I move the city council approve amendment 1 to the lease agreement between the Plaza LLC and the city of Ketchikan doing business as Ketchikan Public Utilities for the lease of space at the Plaza by the Sales, Marketing, and Customer Service Division, and authorize the general manager to execute the amendment on behalf of the city council.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anybody have any comments?
Nope. None me.
Call the roll.
Coos,
Yes.
Severson,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Zingy,
Abstain.
Harris,
Aye.
West.
Yes.
All right, that brings us down to 7B3, budget transfer, public education program support for ballot proposition, municipal bonds not to exceed $5 million for water projects. Do we have a motion? Go ahead.
I move the city council approve the transfer of $10,000 from appropriated reserves of the KPU Enterprise Fund to the Water Division's 2014 Advertising and Public Announcements account, account number 60502, to fund a public education program in support of the ballot proposition to issue municipal utility revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $5 million to provide funds for water main replacement projects in Schoenbach Road, Chatham Avenue, and Front, Mill, and Stedman Streets.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Marty?
A similar sorely needed project, and Dick alluded to it. This is the other component of it on the KPU side.
Question.
You bet.
So staff's gonna work all this out. We get to see this before it goes out?
I hope
don't
so.
wanna say approve it or whatever.
Council wants to see it. We
Yeah.
certainly
I don't wanna slow it down or anything. I
No,
want
we
us
just want to
be
make
the
sure
HQ.
everybody knows that the state's paying 70% of it.
That's what very important.
All right. Call the roll.
Harris,
Aye.
Zingy,
Yes.
Severson,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Coos.
Yes.
Okay, that passes 6-0. Brings us down to vouchers. Do we have a motion?
Your Honor?
Yes.
I move for approval of vouchers for the Ketchikan Daily News in the amount of $1,092.75 and SEAC Professional Services LLC in the amount of $65.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the roll.
West,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Coos,
Yes.
Harris,
Aye.
Severson,
Yes.
Zingy.
Abstain.
Okay, that passes 5-0. That brings us down to manager's report. Carl?
Several, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
We laid on the table tonight a report regarding the fiscal year 2016 community priority list. This list was considered informally by the Cooperative Relations Committee at its meeting August 15, 2014. I talked to the Councilmember Cruz this afternoon. He had a slightly different interpretation than I did on what took place at that meeting. what I can say with some certainty is that the borough manager and I stated that the list that was presented, that he and I could both support, and that's the list that you have on the table before you, 1 through 8. At the borough meeting of August 18th, that list was considered by the assembly. It was amended to move the Ketchikan Shipyard land level berth 2 from 3rd to 7th position. As I indicated in my report, that project was funded in the current capital budget, and I believe if the project were to remain at near the top of the list, it would have a good chance of getting funded in the fiscal year 16 capital budget. Mayor Kiefer has called a meeting for tomorrow of the lobbying executive committee. The community priority list to be sent to the governor will be discussed at that meeting. And I guess I'm looking for any direction that the council may want to give on taking a position, whether the list as approved by the borough is acceptable, or whether you want to make any comments relative to the lowering of the shipyard project. Because I think no matter what the lobbying committee does, the list will come back to the assembly and will come back to the council for final approval. But any input you have at this point would be welcome.
I think that topic will be brought up on the shipyard. I think that's something we'll debate. I mean, I have support, great support to continue, especially anything that's below 2 million. I think we have a better chance of getting money for than anything above. So I don't know if the council wants to make a direction, but Dick?
Yeah, I just wanted to make clear, I guess Carl mentioned it in his memo, and it was his understanding, but it was also in the paper, but having chaired that meeting, there was no intent of that committee to approve that borough list that was laying on the table. It was strictly to give direction to follow the process. And that's the lobbying committee will go in and duke it out.
Okay.
And so I just want to make that clear, and it's not in the notes that Katie put together either. There's no mention of that. Because we weren't making that decision. The other thing is, I guess I'm with Carl on the airport thing. On the shipyard, bringing it back up to where it was, and I did make the comment to the borough folks that were at the Co-op Relations Committee meeting that I thought that their airport infrastructure thing was a whole lot of little things that could have been broken down if they'd wanted to. Now, obviously, they didn't listen too good, and they'll holler at me for saying that, but that's the way I looked at it. Otherwise, the lobbying committee has it. One other thing I mentioned at that Co-op Relations Committee meeting was that because everybody's in agreement, we need to work together. And last year, I mentioned this once before, and I intend to deal with it next at new agenda items, but the City of Ketchikan should have participated in that reception, and we did not. And so when we come up with new agenda items, I will speak to it. That's all.
Thank you, Dick. Carl, continue, or Matt, did you want to add something?
I have similar concerns about where the shipyard got put, just because we're looking at a project that didn't get full funding last year. And maybe I need more explanation from the rest of this body, but why are we lobbying for the Marine Highway working berth? That's something that I don't understand why we're spending our time and effort out there pushing to have something for the Marine Highway System. The Marine Highway System's already pushing for, and then giving it a priority level of number 2 above other things such as, sales and Gorge Street. So I'm a little concerned about that. And the other aspect is, as I look over this, maybe I'm just missing something, but we've got sales and Gorge Street replacement is number 6 on our priority list. Correct?
What?
On our priority list, what I recommended to the city council when this came up at the meeting of the 7th was that of our 6 projects, that I thought the SEEP project should be number 1 on the community priority list going to the governor, and that Sales Gorge should be on that list as well. To me, it wasn't a question of had to be number 2 or number 3. Generally, they're ranked. Each community tries to get 2 projects on the list that goes to the governor. Those were the 2 I thought were the most important.
Okay, and so even though we have, and I apologize, I had a very rough connection, but we've got 5 other items above that on our list, and that's where my question comes from.
Harbor programs and the water sewer programs are funded under existing programs.
Okay.
And they have to pass muster with DEC and DOT. And these other projects are standalone. There's no funding source designated.
Thank you. And the other thing is, I know I made this comment last time, but I think the hospital phase 2 and 3 needs to be recognized on this list. And I think maybe it should be on there, but it could be dead last, and we know that it's not getting funded. But I think it needs to be in our awareness as a community, and I think it needs to be in our representatives and our senators' awareness, and it needs to be in the governor's awareness that in 3 years, when phase 1 is done, we're going to come back and we're going to ask for another $20 million for phase 2 and 3. And leaving it on the list and having it be number 9, even if it's on there, and we can even write in there, this is not a list for a day, and I understand the arguments that were made, and from our lobbyists and conveyed through Mr. Amelon, but I think we need to have it on there so that they see a future request is coming down, and it's going to be a big one, and they need to not be blindsided by it, because it's not going to. I think all of a sudden we could have a potential where, quite frankly, we, instead of getting the 20 million like we really need, because we're funding more than half of that already, we're going to get 5, and then we're going to have to go with the extra 15. So.
Okay, anybody else?
Is this just related to the lobbying list?
Bud?
This is only related to the lobbying?
Nope, now we can talk about anything.
Okay, question.
Yeah.
In regards to Nancy McNulty's concern about the sign, and I'm just looking at the sign that this picture that she gave us, and it looks like there's quite a bit of room on those posts. I was wondering if it would be possible to come up with some kind of compromise that might, at the top of the post, say, you are in, it's Newtown there, you are in Newtown, and restaurants and shopping available in this block, or services available close by, or something, so that would kind of deflect her concerns that we're trying to route people out of her neighborhood in order to kind of reach some kind of amenable resolution to that issue. So I can see what she's talking about.
I tried to get him to have an arrow pointing to the west end, going the other direction, but Carl didn't put it on there.
All right, well,
Okay.
I made my pitch. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Carl, you got more?
I have more, Mr. Mayor. Following up Councilmember Olson's comments, we've had 2 days of intense meetings up at the Ted Ferry Civic Center with Leighton Dawson, Peace Health, Dowell HKM, and NAC. The outcome of that meeting is we should be bringing you at the first meeting in September a final GMP.
What's that, Carl?
Guaranteed maximum price.
Thank you.
For the contract. I'm pleased to tell the council, based on the numbers that we've received, barring any unforeseen major changes or changes in the field, we should end that project with a significant amount of funding that can be available for phase 2, which I did not anticipate at the time we started down this road. So I think that's good news. In the packet, you'll note that the building official has tendered his resignation. I think next Friday is his last day, Cliff, is that right? As Cliff noted in his report, that is going to put a strain on not just the department, but the community as well. For major projects, we're gonna have to farm out some of the plan review. If submissions by contractors are complete, that shouldn't be a major problem. If submissions are incomplete, then you're gonna see delays, so I just wanted the council to be aware of that. With the transfer you made tonight for the education program for the wastewater component of the projects that we were discussing, reserves of the wastewater services fund now stand at $25,000. So I think you're gonna find that an issue going into the 2015 budget. And I just don't want anybody to be surprised by that. I've given you my annual evaluation packet. I would hope that we could set a date soon to get that out of the way. And then lastly, on the KPU side, yesterday we had a meeting with DEC to talk about our water issues. It was a very constructive and very positive meeting. They understand the issues that we are dealing with. They are by no means trying to have us immediately switch our focus to filtration. We don't see that happening anytime in the near future. They want to work with us to continue looking at the watershed issues. They understand what we're dealing with, the disinfection byproducts, and they're going to want to see if the council will authorize us to begin negotiations of a compliance order by consent. Timelines and milestones to continue the studies that we're doing both on the coliforms and two-point chlorination. Councilmember Severson was at the meeting. David Johnson was at the meeting. David did an outstanding job. They were very positive. They were very high on Ketchikan, and they basically said, for the last 20 years, we have cooperated with the state, that we were very high on their list of a community that has its act together. And I'll defer to you, Bob. You were there.
It was a very good meeting. There was a lot of information exchanged. Gave me a better understanding where we sat. We deal with ADEC, but the community of Ketchikan is what's considered a EPA targeted community. When the gal from ADEC first came in 1999, there was over 500 of those communities in the state of Alaska. There are now 60, which Ketchikan is one of them. What that means is they use us like a bench line or something. All the information that the city of Ketchikan provides to ADEC is automatically passed on to EPA for review. And they watch what we're doing. They're the entity that would enforce compliance, not necessarily ADEC. They talked about the track that we're on. I asked them right up front whether or not we could just turn off the ammonia injection at some point, and they didn't see that as being favorable because the ramifications are we are required to meet the standards. And we have been very good partners. Carl talked a little bit about the compliance order by consent, and they only enter into those with cooperative communities that are forward-looking and working on their projects, which Ketchikan is. They had a bunch of different data for us to look at, and our water quality has improved dramatically. I also asked them if they had received any complaints since we did our chlorination, and they have received none. There was a number of calls before that, but once we started the process, they all stopped. Similar to what I think Ketchikan is, we have none of those. And they spoke very favorably of what we're doing within our community as working with staff and different people over at the water department, and they look forward to working with us to resolve our issues. And they don't see, as Carl had mentioned, that filtration is in the near future. They see that a long way down the line because there are ways that we can work at mitigating this stuff. We don't know if they're just short trends or long trends. There was some interesting history given when Dave first came to the city of Ketchikan. It was 80% of his work was on distribution, 20% was in treatment. That number has switched. 80% of his time now is spent on treatment and only 20% in distribution. So we have changed dramatically. We have 3 systems in place right now for treating water, and we're doing it very effectively, even though that we have some issues with the turbidity and some of the coliforms and stuff. Our water is still safe and meets the standard, so it was a good meeting. I was very pleased. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, with that, and with the understanding that any compliance order by consent would have to come back to the council for approval, I'd like the authorization to begin negotiations with DEC and get that process underway.
You have 4 hands? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carl. Anybody else have a question? Dick?
Yeah, 2. One deals with item 5, I guess A5, dealing with the general government long-term debt. And KJ asked for that list, but I guess my question is, what, in relationship to our, say, the city's property assessment, is there a ratio that we should have for debt, like bonds? I mean, is there something, I mean, we got a guideline for everything else. What's the guideline here?
As much as you can.
The city of Ketchikan doesn't have a debt capacity ceiling, so we have to fall back on state statutes, and the only one that I'm aware of, because we're a home rule municipality, is that we can't have a property tax rate in excess of 30 mils. I believe that's
30?
I think that's what it is, but I can't recall.
So there's
We
no,
don't have accounts
like,
left, you know this?
No, it's really,
Okay.
it really boils down to what the community is willing to pay for it.
Okay.
But that general obligation bond, there's a flip side of the coin that has to do with revenue bonds. Revenue bonds is a little bit different, and what puts the cap on revenue bonds is your debt service coverage. And what that really means is the council or the city or KPU willing to raise utility rates to satisfy that debt service coverage. And so the more debt you issue, the more revenues you have to raise in order to satisfy that coverage. And generally speaking, the coverage is 1.25 times annual debt service. So,
Okay, thank you. Go away with the 30 mils. Okay. And the other comment I've got deals with item number 8, with resignation of the building official in the letter that says there's nobody in town qualified to do the job. I have a real hard time believing that. So, and that's all I can say about it. I just know there's a lot of people around that are qualified builders that should be qualified. So I hope that when we advertise,
Recruit locally.
and we got to recruit locally, and we got to make them welcome. Because I know right now builders don't feel welcome in Ketchikan. So I don't know how you handle it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, move on to city clerk's file.
Nothing, Your Honor.
City attorney's file. Future agenda items?
Yeah, Lou?
Yeah.
One, I'd like to see I guess a resolution similar to what Renee presented from the substance abuse force put out by the borough, by the city. I think we ought to be against this thing here. It's not good for us, and I'd like to see that, I guess a resolution on the agenda for that. And also, I would like to see an agenda item that proposes that the city pay for 1/2 of the reception at the last lobbying committee thing we did in Juneau.
Need reimburse?
Reimburse, absolutely. We've made money on the deal, and we ought to be, if we're gonna be partners, let's be partners.
I heard the borough took it pretty hard when we didn't do that. I didn't know we hurt their, people, it was that.
Well, we've been doing it for years. There was no reason, and maybe it was an oversight in the budget, or maybe it was deliberate, but I can't speak to it. I wasn't sitting here, but, So I'd like to see an agenda item on there, and we'll see if we want to do it.
And 4. Mayor and council comments. KJ,
Got a couple.
go ahead.
Let's talk about garbage bears. We've gotten a couple of letters from citizens regarding bears playing in the garbage, and there's certain rules like don't take your garbage out too early. And I stopped up at the landfill. I call it landfill because if you call it the dump, I get yelled at. I stopped at the landfill. This is what they are recommending to put on your garbage can. It looks like a big cumbersome thing, but once you set it up, it wrenches right down. The bears can't open it. And I believe Lenny said they were somewhere in the vicinity of $4 or $5 a piece. And if somebody's on a real tight budget where they can't do it, I'm sure the landfill would make arrangements. I mean, bungee cords are good, but this is nice and solid. And he recommends you get them on your garbage cans. Because the bears lived here a long time before we came up here. And we're interfering on their area, so let's just be it. You know, I think last I've heard we've had two bears killed. Is that right? And that's, you know, I hate to see that happen, but, you know, they're coming down playing with our garbage, so I just want to pass that on. These are available either at Madison or you can check out at the landfill. I think Lenny's got a few of them. Voting's coming up. I want everybody to think really hard. Just don't vote for somebody because you like their hair. You know? And I mean that because, you know, mine's pretty, but you know what I mean. Think about it before you vote. Because it's going to be really important to the next council and the other things that are going on in town, but it's going to be really important who we pick. And the other thing that I would run into the other day is there are some folks in our community that when you get a group of tourists on the sidewalk, they just seem to like to drive by and we'll just say, flip them a, you know, a little something or yell at them for whatever reason they're doing it. And I just want to remind everybody, and I'm not sure of the numbers, but I'm guessing close to 50% of everything we make in this town comes from them big boats out there. And we don't have to bend over backwards to treat the tourists nice, but at least treat them like you'd want to be treated. Quit being mean and, you know, just vile to the tourists, because we do need that money. And when they come up here and spend thousands of dollars, and then they hear somebody yell a derogatory statement, it ruins their whole time. And that's all I got.
Thank you, KJ. Bob?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Marty?
Yeah, I've got one thing. There's a Facebook discussion going on right now about dogs and chickens. The dog's owner is Ryan Hannes, who's an officer in the police department, and I know Ryan well enough to say hello to him, but we're not really well acquainted. I am good friends with several members of his family, though. I don't know Kevin Staples at all. He's the one who owns the chickens. Officer Hannes was recently fined for his actions in relation to Mr. Staples' chickens. I'm not interested in getting in the middle of dogs and chickens, but what does concern me is that Mr. Staples is running for council, and he has written some things on Facebook really angry, really vitriolic, about Officer Hannes. And this has been going on since last year. It gives me some concern about how the police department's going to figure into the campaign as an issue and into the council if Mr. Staples is elected. People are entitled to their opinions. They're entitled to let those opinions be known, but there are some very nasty and heavy-handed allegations about Officer Hannes, and by inference about the police department, that have been put on Facebook recently, and has nothing to do with dogs and chickens. I also want to say that some people might think that the council gets preferential treatment or special favors from the police department, and that is not the case. I rolled through a stop sign. I got a $160 ticket. They could have cared less who I was, gave me that ticket. So, yeah, we don't get any special favors, but I'm really concerned about what I've been reading on Facebook. It's been really vicious personal attacks.
Thank you. Matt, nice stand.
Thank you.
Do you have anything to add?
I missed your smiling face.
Yeah, we hardly could hear you last time. I don't even know why you called in. We just didn't even pay attention.
They made fun of you.
What else doesn't it?
We do not hear.
I know. No, the only statement I have is similar to KJ's in terms of just, or not similar, but along the lines of we do have an election commitment for city council. We have one commitment for borough assembly and for school board. The filing deadline is Monday, correct, Ms. Burke?
Yes.
Well, we do have, is it 6 candidates now for city
Yeah,
council?
we do.
I believe there are only 3 for borough assembly for the 3 open seats, and I don't think anyone's filed for school board yet. I would just say, I enjoy serving. Enjoy every aspect of it. Are there moments where you cringe a little bit? Absolutely, but there are moments like that in every facet of life. I encourage anyone who is interested in running to go down and get the petitions, and if they need signatures, come find me. I will be the first one to sign.
Thank you. Judy?
No, nothing, Your Honor.
Dick?
Nope.
All right. Bill, we did have the last election. I think everybody voted. We got the local elections coming up in October. Hopefully people sign up, decide over the weekend, come in on Monday. I'm going to be getting a hold of you guys and working out dates for evaluations for our staff, our 3 members that we deal with. Yes, Marty, we don't get special treatment. I got to pay my parking tickets tomorrow. Otherwise, they'll see me out at the collection agency, which they seem to know me well. I rolled through a stop sign, got stopped. It was terrible. I got a warning.
Oh.
We have a motion to adjourn. Oh, Nick.
What if the executive session on or off?
We didn't. I wasn't. It's up to you, Nick.
Okay, my comment on that is, as I read through that, and to the life of me, I cannot figure out what is, what's the word, privileged, that we can't disclose. I mean, everybody knows we're doing a telephone company. Everybody in the world knows how to do it. And we've let contracts for this and contracts for that, so somebody's gonna have to explain to me why this cannot be available to the public for what I've been fed anyway.
Ed.
Ed Cushing, Telecom Division Manager. Telecom exists in a very competitive environment. We compete every day with GCI at a retail level for business in this community. Over the last 5 years, we've grown our market share essentially from 16% to roughly 40%. GCI, conversely, has gone down. Our underlying cost of doing business, that's on the IPTV side. As you know, we're entering the 4G LTE business, and we intend to do the same thing in that market for them that we've done to them on the IPTV side. I would do anything to have access to GCI's underlying numbers that they have to our underlying numbers, even at this level. We operate the only competitive business I'm aware of that shares as much information in public as we do. Having said that, it would take a great deal of energy and effort on their part to put all the various parts and pieces together. When they learned we were building a radio system to Prince Rupert, they challenged us and said, there's no way that you can do that. We don't believe you. We've now shown that they were wrong in that their assumption, but to this day, they don't understand how we were able to put together the various parts and pieces, the leases, the deals we made in order to do what we've done. From my perspective, we've already shared too much with them. When you share with your competitor what your underlying costs are, and what your underlying contracts are, and how you're operating your business such that you're able to beat them, you're inviting them to go to your the people you're doing business with and cut better deals, and to otherwise work hard to put you out of business. That's the essence of it. If we want to have a conversation about these deals, whether it's the IRD or the 4G deal or the radio, we should do that in private, just as any private business would. And part and parcel in the contracts that we have with AT&T and Verizon and others, there's an understanding that some of this gets shared in public, but not all of it. And it's very difficult to stand in a public forum and have questions and give you answers and remember every moving part relative to is this confidential or is that confidential or not. So it's dangerous business to stand here and discuss this at any level of detail. And it begs the question, why would we want to do that?
And I would reiterate staff's offer at any time, if any council member wants to sit down, and Mr. Cushing and I, to go over any aspects of what we're doing. We were more than willing to take the time, so.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Ed, anything else?
I still fail to see it. I mean, we're putting out contracts with numbers on it, and, you know, you just gotta go with what you're doing, but I fail to see, with those numbers are there, and they're laying on the table.
Councilmember Cruz, a number of the contracts that we did early on with Verizon and Ericsson, what went out to the public, did not contain the information that was provided to the council privately.
With that private contractor, yes, but with the towers, everything we've done out there to put up towers and do other things, including what we purchased, whatever that is you get from GCI or that underwater cable, it's there. And we still haven't lowered anybody's bill because we got it for a third the cost. But anyway, I'm not gonna get anywhere, so I'll just keep beating on it.
Stand for. Thank you, Ed. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Let's stay here.